That's funny, I was talking to the camera. Totally wasn't recording. All right. It is sundown. This minute right now is sundown. I'll try to throw a few more here on a relatively dark image at this point, just due to the lack of light and cloudiness. Last one. There it is. 5 for 5, and it's pretty darn dark out right now.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Guns Out Minnesotan. Today I have a product sent out to the channel by Accufire. This is their PROSPECTIS line. It is the ATRO-20. Very favorable review coming. I have a lot of heavy use of the product here. You're going to see it on multiple rifles, including this Savage Model 10 here, as well as a 300 PRC from Ruger. And I gave it as much recoil and abuse as I could to just see if it held zero. It did very well, and I'm going to tell you ahead of time, this is going to be a very optimistic review, a very positive review, because I had an excellent experience with this product. I knew it would be good, but I didn't know it would be this good, and so I'm going to take my time. This is a very long review. It's going to be very heavy with real-world use. We're going to start off with some of the specs and what you get inside the box. When you get your package and you open up inside it is insulated well, packaged well. First thing you're going to see is your registration card like this. An important line to pick out here is they would like to know how the product broke. If you had a mechanical failure or you dropped it, something, some freak accident, they just like to know how you broke it, but otherwise they're going to take care of you. You just send it back as long as you have the product in hand or whatever's left of it. If you had a house fire or something like that, make sure you get it back to them and they are going to take care of you. So you have your registration card, you have your manual, and the manual is a decent manual. It's going to let you know everything you need to know about this, a silica packet to keep things dry, and a very large size lens cleaning cloth. It's a nice soft one. And then of course you have your optic, and along with the optic you're going to have the necessary components like a 2032 3V battery for Illumination, which we'll be testing out here shortly, and the zero stop mechanism, which of course I'm going to be using on this channel. We definitely need to use a zero stop at the distances I'm going to be shooting and showing you. This is an important part of it, otherwise I'll just get lost in the travel, because this does have a decent amount of internal elevation. Flip caps come on it, and so you're pretty much ready to go. Throw it on a rifle, which I'm about to do, and start zeroing, and then run out to whatever distance you need to and start confirming that those turrets do what they're supposed to. I'm going to tell you, these turrets are really, really tactile. Looking forward to showing you more about that in just a second. The optic comes with flip cap covers, and they're going to do the trick pretty decently. I'm going to take that off for a moment so I can show you what's underneath. And you have your reticle focus, and this is a nice texture. I like this. It's very, very smooth. I have to say, the fit and finish, the feel of this optic, I am surprised. I would say I underestimated what it would be like, and I think this is a very high quality optic in general, but the fit and finish is kind of next level. At this price point, I don't think they would have to make it quite so neat and clean, and everything's so smooth. I I've seen plenty of scopes in this price point that just, they're not quite there with the smoothness or fit and finish. They still operate well, but this one has kind of both things going for it. Very nice, good range of motion. For my eye, it happens to be all the way to the right. I'll go ahead and throw this cap cover back on. And of course, there is information there to give you positive and negative so you know which way you're moving. I would say it has the right amount of resistance underneath that cap cover for the focus assist. I think it has the right amount of resistance, so it's not going to just move on you if you do need to change that diopter setting. Moving on to the Magnification Ring itself, has a similar texture as you're going to find on the diopter, and this one has an assist on it. It comes with the assist installed. I do believe you can remove that, but I won't because I like it. I am definitely a fan of having an optic in this setup. You know, a 50mm objective, 34mm tube that goes down to 2.5 is pretty cool. I would say there's just a bit of resistance on this one, but it's smooth enough. I don't find it to be, you know, too heavy to operate or move. It's certainly not going to get bumped on you and go from a different, you know, magnification to another. But again, it's a first focal plane, so that shouldn't be too much of an issue if it did get bumped a little bit. I like it. I think it's pretty solid. It definitely has no slop in there. Requires a little more force than I would prefer, but I'm pretty okay with that. It would not detract me personally from buying an optic like this. I think this has a lot going for it, and this is a pretty minor thing overall. One thing I noticed when I go up to 20 power and I give it a little bump down, there might be a little bit of shift, a tiny, minute, just a tiny bit of reticle shift. And I'm saying it's like between those two, when I'm looking through the glass, it appears there's a small amount of reticle shift there from 20. Hard to prove that, but it just appears that way in the glass to my eye. But I wouldn't say there's a huge issue there, and judging by the groups that I just shot, certainly no issues. I'm really shooting tight tonight for whatever reason. Perhaps it's this PROSPECTIS. When it comes to the Parallax knob, I would say it's very smooth. Does not require much force to move this around. And you'll see that it does go from, I'll move this back, it goes from 50 yards to 100, 200, 500. There is a 750 yard marker in there. That's kind of interesting. I don't think I've seen that before with a 750. And then there's 1,000, and there's your infinity up there. I would say, yeah, resistance on this is not bad. It's pretty smooth. It's got a very good texture on it. I don't believe that this is going to clog up or be too hard to move on those really cold Minnesota days. I think it'll still move freely enough, and that's an important feature on a precision rifle optic like this. Good size dial, but not so big that's going to run into just being cumbersome or in the way of things. I can still see my scope level. I'm out of level. There we go. I can still see my scope level just fine with this size knob. That's another big deal to think about. When it comes to illumination, it's got a very nice tactile feel from each number. It does go up to 11. All right, it goes up to 11. And then it does have a night vision setting and everything in between. It does not have off in between. It is either on or off. So if you were going night vision, that wouldn't be a big deal because you would be off and then you'd be on 1, and that's usually night vision. And if you really need this to be bright, and I would say it's relatively bright, it's nearly daylight bright for a very bright day. 11 is certainly going to conquer most evenings with a little bit of sunlight. Ambient sunlight, I don't think I could even use it that high because it's quite bright and it does illuminate the entire reticle as you're seeing right now. And it moves around pretty well. Couldn't speak to battery life just yet. Not sure how long it lasts, but it is a decent brightness. And as far as the kind of shooting I do, it's certainly going to be adequate for evening or early morning shooting, maybe those hunting scenarios or a target that is just hard to pick out and I need more contrast. Occasionally I will use some illumination for that. One thing that really bothers me is when I'm watching an optics review and they don't have much to say about the reticle here. So I'm going to take a second. I'm using my phone. That's why the audio changed. I'm using my phone and a scope cam to record the reticle here and just do a little bit of inside talking before I get back out to the range again. So looking at the reticle, starting at the very top, I'm going to tell you that the ranging feature there, although it's kind of more of a generic ranging feature, I think that probably does work. I didn't have a chance to test that exclusively, just being honest, but I am familiar with this, and I think it does the trick if you know what you're looking for and how to use that. Moving down from that, you're going to see there's 2 mils of hold under, and I like the position of that, and I almost demand any personal optic that I'm going to keep, like this one. I'm keeping this one. This is definitely something that's not going away. I like this optic a lot. Any optic that I keep, I need to see some hold under in the reticle because of the way that I use it. Now, sometimes when I'm shooting at ELR distances or very, very far, I may end up getting my data wrong, the temperature. If it's really hot and I'm cooking rounds, it might go high, and I would like to be able to measure on the berm or whatever impact surface is behind, or paper, maybe even steel. I want to see how many tenths high was I, or was I a full mil or 2 mils high? Something like that is really important. And then also, if you're going to be ranging and you're trying to get it down really, really tight, some people would prefer to use the mils and not the rapid ranging feature on top. They would like to use the mils and the tenths and do the equation, essentially, which is something like, if you round it off, 27.77 times the height of your target in inches divided by how many mils it takes, even down to the tenths. And that will give you a general estimation for distance formula. So I like having those there, and they're the right size. I think it doesn't busy up the reticle so badly. It doesn't cloud my vision. I didn't have any issues with spotting at 1,000 plus yards just because that was there. No concerns whatsoever. Moving on to the horizontal lines there. You see there's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 in both directions, and I'm very glad that they decided to list those, put the numbers out there, and they didn't make the numbers so small or so tiny. I'm going to tell you that right now I'm on 8.5, 9 power, something like that, and you can actually see the full 20 mils down, and then you can see the 10 mils across on either side. It's technically 20 by 20 if you look at it that way. And I like being able to rapidly see how many mils was I left or right, because in real world situations, guys, if you're actually shooting something like a cartridge to the extremes of its capability, or pretty far even, you're going to start noticing some wind issues. And this is an optic that has very, very good turrets and decent glass for sure. And so I'm dialing on it. And as much as I can help it, I'm not holding over. Although at ELR distances, I just sometimes can't help it, even with scopes like this that have massive internal travel. Sometimes I still need to hold over a little bit. So this optic technically gives me both of what I need. If I have a very windy day, and let's say I'm holding 6 or 7 mils of wind at 1,000 yards with certain cartridges, that will help me. I can rapidly assess how far over, again, measuring, figuring out how far my bullets are impacting to the left or right, depending on where the wind's coming from. And then going down in the reticle, you'll see that you have 1, 2, 3 mils of hold under that for windage, essentially. Windage holds there. And there's some big dots and then some little ones. And you have your very standard lines in the center of the reticle in that stadia going all the way down to 20. And this is a really simple, fast, it's a sensible reticle. I didn't find anything about this to be something where I had to look into the manual and figure out, well, what is the actual value of that distance? It just makes so much sense, guys. There's nothing here, and I mean absolutely nothing, that is confusing or was not what I expected. I think the reticle, all the way down to the center dot aiming portion itself, all made sense, and it was easy for me to measure things, make corrections, and get those hits on steel, which was a big deal because I was using very expensive ammo this last time. Moving down from the windage there, discussing a little bit more of the elevation, I'm very, very glad to see in this reticle choice that they went with 20 mils of holdover. Sometimes that could be obnoxious. If the glass quality is not good, it's just not worth it. It's not worth the price you pay in the bending of light and, an incorrect image and then skewing data and just the struggle of trying to see it properly. Looking through an unclear piece of glass would be really frustrating down there at the 20 mils. Now, I'm going to prove something to you. I'm actually focused on the center reticle right now, and if I refocus the camera down there at the, there we go. Now I'm focused on the 20 line. It's not blurry, it's just the camera. I just wanted you to be able to see that, yes, in fact, it is clear at the bottom of the reticle on that 20 line. And again, I'm on 9 power, and so I'm going to focus back in the center here. On 9 power, I was not having issues with the reticle functioning the way it should because the glass clarity was meeting it where it needed to be. And that's even with dialing quite a bit of the elevation out of this thing, and then also using holdover on the smaller caliber rifles. When I was doing that, I was still seeing a pretty good image, and the numbers were not blurry. That is something I've experienced on a number of other optics that go out to 20 or 30 or 40 mils, is that you can really start to have a crappy image, and it's just not worth having those values down below for holdover. In my mind, if the glass is quality enough, I always want to see some sort of stadia, some sort of measurement that's going to go all the way down to at least 20, maybe even 30 mils. Reference points as a minimum, because I actually do use them, and sometimes extended ranges. I may not even dial. If you watch my channel for a while, sometimes I will shoot on the lowest power, and I might not even dial and just use holdovers for fun and get really quick with my rifles. That's just something I like to do. I think it's fun. And this reticle, I guess the point of what I'm saying is it's versatile. It covers lots of ground. It does all the things that I really want it to do. And now I'm going to show you some illumination. So let me cut the lights here and we'll look at illumination. So here's illumination. Again, we're on 9 power. You can see the entire reticle now very clearly. That center dot is a little hard to see. But this is one of the options that companies have to make, or decisions they have to make rather, is do they want to go with a full reticle illumination and just everything, and you might get a little bleed over, that's one of the risks, or do you want to go with partial or just center dot? I don't mind telling you that I tend to prefer just center dot illumination because of the way that I shoot, and generally holding over, if it's dark, I just probably am not taking those shots, and so I don't really need the lower portion of the illumination in the holdover, but it's there for you if you want it, and it doesn't really hurt me too much. It's just a little bit much. As you can see, that's on the highest setting. Now I'm going to turn it down each time, and you can see it is getting duller, and it's pretty dark in the room I'm in right now. Going down each time. Camera's being a little goofy. But there's my night vision setting right there, and then back up to, yep. Okay, so that's about a night vision setting right there. And so that's what it's going to look like if you run through the illumination. I think it's really important to have a short discussion about what this reticle is going to look like in varying ways, and what eye relief is going to be like. So actually let's go down to start with, and you can see the eye box improve. The eye box is generally improving, and let me go ahead and try to refocus that reticle. That's going to be a little tough to do. Here we go. So that's what the reticle looks like, all the way zoomed, 2.5 power. Yes, you could use it. You could use it like that, and it's just going to be blurry for a number of reasons. Parallax, and then also the reticle itself is very small and hard to focus on for this camera. But that's usable. If you were shooting very, very close, you definitely could use it. There's illumination on that huge grid right there. I'm going to turn that back off. But most of the time, I'm going to be shooting on a little bit heavier power, and you are going to see the eye box reduce a little bit. And let's refocus and move in. And generally, in real life, behind the scope, the image is not going to darken that much. That's just the eye box changing. And I wouldn't say that 20 power is a touchy eye box. I would say that more has to do with the actual camera setup right here, and I can prove that by just barely moving my camera around. You can see that's an eye box issue more than anything. But there is a little touchiness there, just a little tiny bit. Not much. I hardly even noticed it while shooting, which is the important thing. I'll show you that the center dot there is very, very small. It is not a bigger dot. So if you have a lot of trouble with vision, that might be one thing for you to consider, although you do have the box or the square parameters around that are going to cue you into it, and you're going to know about where you're holding anyways. Even on lower power, that wasn't an issue for me because of the design of the reticle and the standoff for the first tenths all around that quad box there. Most of the time, I was not shooting on 20 power. It's just not necessary for me. And I was finding a really comfortable image right around there. That's 11 power. That was really comfortable for me, and I like it quite a bit. I think it's a good reticle, and it was worth taking some time to talk about because, again, This is the thing that you're going to be looking at and staring at, and it's going to help you shoot, and you're going to get information from it. This is an important part of a scope review, so forgive me for taking a few minutes, but now we'll move on to something else. All right, when it comes to setting the zero stop, there's something I'm a really big fan of. The only tool that you need to set the zero stop or slip the scales is a coin. And this right here, these are lift to operate turrets. I have actually already set the zero stop, but I'm going to go ahead and loosen this up and just show you what I did underneath here. It's a really simple process. I'm a big fan of this. It's also optional. You don't have to use it if you don't want to, which is, I guess that's cool. So this right here is actually a thread-on portion. This is going to come in your package. It's not on the scope because when you zero your scope, you don't necessarily want this on there. This right here, this base is threaded, and this is the piece that comes with it. So after you've shot your groups, and I just shot and confirmed my zero, I tighten that all the way down, and it can't be offset. It needs to be all the way down. And it's going to line up. There's a little groove there. It's going to line up with that. And then you're going to line up. You can see there's almost like a little ball with a detent looking feature to it, but it's just a ball right there that sticks out to let you know where the zero is, essentially. And that's going to slip over and all the way down. And it lines up exactly on that mark, which is very good. The witness marks, you know, it lines right up with that, so I don't have any slop in the turrets. They're not actuating wrong or landing on the wrong line. I like that, so I tighten it down just enough there, and I lift and I check that zero stop. It's not moving that direction. All right, and it's a nice hard zero stop. This should give you a feel for the turrets, for the kind of feel that they have, as well as the detents in between each click, how that's actually going to feel. The sound is very similar. When I try to manufacture backlash, there's maybe a little something there, but that's me really trying. You would not notice that in actual use. I do not feel like it's going to go below that number at all. Really cool. I like this a lot. I didn't need any Allens. I didn't have any risk of stripping anything out. You know, you'd have to be pretty foolish to mess this kind of system up. This is a very good zero stop. I would like to see this on more optics. And I'm going to be checking return to zero as well as tracking. But I'm going to be checking return to zero on this frequently because I just want to confirm. And if this is consistent, this is a really, really good system. I like this better than most of the other optics I've seen with their zero stops because, again, all I need is a coin anytime I'm out, and that's a big deal to me. Less tools, less gear. Man, that's awesome to be able to fix this and change that zero, whether I'm going to shoot with a suppressor or not, or weather conditions. It's just so simple to change that. And obviously, moving over to the windage does not have a zero stop. Same system, loosen, and then move it over to zero, drop it down, and tighten again with the coin. I'm going to tell you I like these turrets a lot. I like the design. I like the style in general, the size, the lower profile nature. For different kinds of guns, I think that's pretty cool. Again, I like the zero stop. The texture around here is very, very good. The feel of each click, it's very tactile. Definitely sounds good, feels very, very good, trustworthy. I can both hear and feel them clicking as I go through. And what's really cool, I have a 30 MOA rail on this, and there's plenty of internal travel. With the zero stop engaged, I still have, there's 10, there's 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, and I'm not going to push it too much more here, but I have about 27.5 mils left over with my zero stop engaged, which is very impressive. It's something I love to see, not to mention this has a fantastic reticle, and if you put that 27 in addition to, you know, at least 10 in the reticle, but there's 20 of holdover, you're looking at quite a bit of range of travel, and you could shoot very, very far. On my channel before, I've showed you shooting on minimum magnifications with 20 MOA or 20 mil holdover reticles, shooting optics on 22s past 600 yards with something like that. And the capability of optics like this, it's very, very high, and that's part of the price point, is you're getting a really good reticle, very, very good turrets, great fit and finish and feel, and I believe they're going to be very, very functional, but it's time to go over and test that out.
Well, it's still on steel, even though I discovered after a couple years my mount came loose. The rail itself, I should say. Gonna have to go fix that.
Alright, I apologize about the dark here. Here's my target that I had at 1,000 yards. I was shooting steel at 1,030, and here's my target at 1,000 yards.
I did rush one of those shots. I have no idea which one it is, but that's an 8-inch group right there. For me, it's a little bigger than I want it to be. It's almost twice as big as I want it to be on a good day, on a real good day. But I'll certainly take it. It is under a minute of angle, and every time I shoot under a minute of angle at 1,000 yards, I try to walk away and say, it's not too bad, it's not terrible. It was a windless night, so I was hoping for a little better, but the optic did its part. It was a very small, fine reticle, and remember, I was shooting this group when it was dark. At like past sun, okay, technically a little past sundown. I try not to do that ever, but it was a little past sundown, and an 8-inch group with almost no light, and the only contrast I had was using reticle illumination, and that's not too bad. I was 2/10 high. I should have come off 2/10 definitely, but you can see there an 8-inch group. It's fairly consistent, and I did that with, you know, a non-high power optic. It wasn't crazy, you know, like 30x or something. I was pretty low. I think I shot that when it was on 16 power to brighten up the image and use a little illumination, and not bad. Definitely not bad, guys. I've seen worse for you know, dark shooting anyways, so I'm happy enough with it. The optic is doing exactly what it should.
I have got a lot of black going on. I need to wear like a white shirt next time I film a video or something, because this it's really hard to get contrast going. I am pretty happy, I would say very content with the performance of this optic, especially considering I spent a long time tonight, quite a few rounds shooting in low light, and you saw just some of the performance I was seeing there on a 2/3 size target at 1,030 yards, and I was fighting some mirage. Actually, it was off the barrel, not necessarily ground mirage. Out there, it was right here in front of me. I was fighting a little bit of that on 20 power. That's not uncommon. That's not a bad sign with the optic. That's just heat from a very high pressure, you know, cooking round. 300 PRC is pretty hot. All I had to do was back it off to about 16 power. And you know, the nice thing about that is it brightened up my image a little bit. It is a 50mm objective, but honestly, it didn't seem to hinder the performance or the image. I thought it was still a really nice image that I was seeing there. I was pulling in enough light, even though it's very overcast around me. You probably can't tell because I'm using camera software and editing software to brighten up this image, but it's basically dark out right now. And with that dark, I was still picking up enough contrast, enough detail, enough light to see my targets down there, even my paper targets today, which are like a cream color and then a black outline. That black reticle, it doesn't stand out super well against really dark targets, but remember, this has illumination. So when I went on illumination to, I think it was about 6, that was plenty enough for contrast for me to see against those targets down there and produce some actually, I would say, pretty decent groups, considering especially how dark it is and how hot my barrel might have been. That was impressive. I think this optic, a couple of the reviews that I saw, you know, more talking reviews than use reviews. What I saw was a lot of tactical application and like fighting rifles, defensive rifles, and I like that. I think that's really cool. This is a nice compact design. It is a 34mm, but it has the lower profile turrets. It does have illumination, and it does go down to 2.5 power, and then it has a 50mm objective. And so I could definitely see somebody saying that this has a lot of tactical application for fighting rifles, defensive rifles, battle rifles, that sort of thing. If you ever listen to anybody from like SWAT teams or people who have actually taken shots, a lot of times it's very, very close. Sometimes it's further, and they need to use, you know, more magnification to get detail, but very often it's very, very close, and they're trying to close in on the target. They want to get as close as possible to take a very sure shot, and 2.5 power is exactly what you would need for more of a tactical application, because you're not always shooting, you know, even 100 yards. Sometimes when I've seen some sniper stuff, SWAT stuff, I don't have experience with that in real life, but when I've seen people who do have experience, they've talked about needing really low end power, and like 2.5 to 20 definitely fits that application. Now, that's cool. That's less of the stuff that I do. I'm not, you know, so much tactical, but in a hunting scenario, I could see an application there. That would make a lot of sense, because a lot of times the deer I'm taking shots at are within 30 yards, which is really, really close. And in order to not worry about the 50-yard minimum parallax, what I do is I back off the magnification, and I don't have so much parallax issue at all. So 2.5 power is very functional. It makes a lot of sense to me For hunting, tactical application, the reticle, the fact that it all illuminates top to bottom, it's gonna be hard to miss, guys. If you're in a hunting scenario, you should be able to see it just fine. And then the, let's say the PRS and precision shooting application. The reticle makes a lot of sense. I really like that design. I already discussed that, but I'm gonna tell you it makes sense for the PRS application and competition shooting as far as center fire goes. I wouldn't use it for ATRO-20 perhaps, just because of the 50-yard minimum parallax. If it went down to 25 yards, I would say absolutely, this is a good contender for that, because it does have trueness of tracking, has an excellent return to zero, now they've been able to prove that, and I'm very happy to see that. And then form factor and magnification, you know, going up to 20 power is plenty enough for NRL22, but it's more of a parallax issue. So I would say center fire, this fits really well. Obviously, a lot of the reviews are on ARs and that kind of thing, but I think this fits at home on a bolt gun. This is like my favorite rifle. I love this rifle. It shoots so incredibly well. And I wanted to put this on here. And if you watch my channel for a while, not every optic that I get into the channel goes on to this rifle. In fact, very few do. And this was a very good optic to put on here. The combination is very cool. It's a sweet shooting rifle, and it's a very sweet shooting optic. I really like the image that it provided. The brightness, the contrast was good. I didn't get a lot of tunneling as I was going back and forth with magnification. I had very few critiques for this overall. I actually think this is probably a little bit higher quality than I already thought. And I thought it was a good scope. I thought, hey, I'm really excited about this. I want to go shoot this right away because it's a good scope. But it actually impressed me because the image, the reticle, and then especially these turrets. These turrets are very, very, very good. They are very tactile. The zero stop system, not needing any tools, I thought that was like particularly cool. I haven't seen that before, and I would like to see more of it. Have a daddy long legs climbing up my pants. This is why it's hard to film reviews. Well, this is the part of the review where usually I tell you who this is best designed for or intended for, or who would get the most out of this optic, and then maybe give a little bit of a critique or something like that as well, because I always think it's reasonable to give a little critique or even talk about preference. And that's probably the way I'm gonna go. First of all, let me say I really struggled to find anything I didn't like about this optic. I struggled. This was such a happy surprise for me. It was a great optic. You're going to be seeing it for the years to come on this rifle and other rifles for sure. I like it very, very much. Between the feature sets and the actual quality of it, it was just such a surprise. I think this competes above the price point, guys. It is a high value optic. Not every optic that is sold out there is a high value optic. You might have a high quality optic, but they're not always high value for the amount of money you're putting into it. This is a high value optic that is also a high quality optic, and I'm just so impressed. The feature sets, they work great. I guess the most minor critique that I could give before I get into who would get, you know, a lot out of this would be just when I go between like the very end of the mag range, I feel like I see a slight reticle shift, maybe just a little bit there. It's almost indiscernible, and that's where people are going to say mine doesn't have it, and maybe somebody else will say I think maybe mine does. I'll leave it up to you guys. I think there's a minor shift there. It could just be stiffness, that, you know, it's a little stiff in that spot maybe, but otherwise things have smoothed out, you know, now that it's kind of broken in really well. And I've shot it on a few guns. I'm just not seeing issues with it. I don't have, like the main issue would be, I don't have point of impact change. I'm not having issues with that at all. Eye box issues, not really. It's not really a tight eye box. Maybe just a slight bit touchier. You'll notice around like 18, 19, 20 power. It's a little touchier, but that's true of most optics. The 50mm objective did not bother me at all. It was still a bright image. I'm gonna say the glass was a very welcome surprise. Again, early morning, middle of the day, like right now it's middle of the day, very bright out basically. And then nighttime and even like past sundown. I shot, I don't know if you watch the part of the video, go back and watch it. But with my Ruger Precision rifle in 300 PRC, I was shooting this optic on that gun past sundown, I remember. It was actually dark out, and I shot an 8-inch group at 1,000 yards, which maybe in the sunlight, that's not like an amazing group, but in the dark, I thought it was phenomenal, and the reticle helped me get there. So I'm really happy with the feature sets. Let's talk about who is this good for. I struggle with who it's not good for. That's kind of the hard thing. It's such a good optic, and the design and all that. I guess if you need a small footprint, like if you're looking for more of a dedicated LPVO, you should still look at Accufire because they have really good LPVOs. I plan to try to reach out and maybe see some of those on the channel here in the future as well, alongside of this, because if they're anything like this, they're gonna rock, guys. I'm telling you, this is so good. But they have LPVOs, so if you need a smaller footprint, less power, maybe this is just more than you need, maybe the reticle design isn't exactly what you're looking for, and you're looking for more of a target-based or holdovers-based. I think they have a few different designs in their LPVOs, and they also have a 2-12 if I remember right. But this, it just fits so many uses for me. I would be very at home putting it on most ARs unless I need it to be super light, even though this optic is not terribly heavy. Like, I'm telling you, this has so much going for it. I guess, yeah, maybe for those folks, you need to shoot fast and you don't want much magnification and you need a reticle that complements that type of shooting. I suppose this wouldn't be ideal for you, but everybody else, you're in. It's just my opinion. I think it's a very, very functional and competent optic and reticle. The design of this, you know, it's unique enough. I don't see many that look just like this. And having that low power of 2.5 and then still having 20 power as an option, and it's usable 20 power, and the glass doesn't get all ugly, and the reticle is usable, you know, at the bottom of the holdover. Like, those are big deals to me, and it should be to you too if you actually use those features. Basically daylight bright illumination and just a high quality feel. Like, there's a lot of pride of ownership in this optic. I just don't know who it's not good for. So I'm sorry, guys. Usually I try to be more specific in that, but I just don't know who wouldn't appreciate this. That's what it is. So at the end of the day, I'm very happy with it. Thank you to Accufire for sending this out to the channel. I can't do stuff like this unless I can partner with companies who send it out. I just don't have that kind of money and finances. You see how much money I spent on this review. Oh my gosh. So many rounds on that Ruger Precision Rifle in 300 PRC. And it's going to be hard for me to come back from that. But anyways, the optic is good. It gets my thumbs up, more than my thumbs up. I absolutely recommend this optic. And if you're a long range shooter, mid range shooter, or a 100-yard shooter, hunter, I think this is a competitive option against everything else on the market. And that's all I have to say. Thank you, guys. Go ahead and like and share, maybe subscribe. That would really help me out, help in the channel. And then I'm going to post in the pinned comment there a link to Accufire so you can go to their website and see what else they have to offer.